Hello and welcome back or welcome to the channel. I'm Loudguns and today's video is going to be a bit of an odd duck. With the high profile failure of another MMO crowdfunding project, I've already started to see a few read across comments regarding Star Citizen. And no, to the question probably posed in the title, I don't in fact think Star Citizen is going to be the next victim. I can understand the reasons behind the comparisons. Ashes of Creation was a game I quietly followed from the sidelines, and by many it was vaunted as a potential saviour of the MMO genre. With a big focus on exploration, trading, and the ability for players to shape an immersive world, is any of this sounding familiar? And this was all going to be delivered by a brand new studio, Intrepid, founded by a charismatic leader, Stephen Sharif. Although it should be noted from the outset that Sharif lacked the credentials of his opposite number at CIG. And of course, to be free of the yoke of traditional publishers, Sharif's own personal investment in the company would be supplemented by, drumroll please, a Kickstarter crowdfunding campaign that smashed all of its targets. So in this vid, I'm going to draw on some of my real life experience as a professional investor, unpicking some of the pitfalls that Intrepid and Sharif fell into with Ashes, and elaborating a bit on why I don't think SC is likely to go the same way. If all this sounds good to you, then grab a cup of tea while I roll the intro, then let's get into it. So given what I've led with about not actually thinking Star Citizen is destined for failure, I need to adjust with one big old caveat. All companies, every single one in the world, the one you work for, the one that your mum works for, the one that owns the pub down the road for you, the one that makes your toaster or your favourite biscuits, can fail. So by definition, Cloud Imperium Games, the makers of CIG, could fail. Anyone who is already blasting the comments with a flat "no, CIG will never fail" is, and I'm sorry to use such fruity language so early in a video, a buffoon. I've spent all but 1 year of my adult working life managing people's savings and investments, and there's a clear reason why nobody who does that professionally will ever stick too much of their clients' money into a single stock. There's no way of telling if a certain company will blow up, and if anybody tells you that they can, with absolute certainty, predict that, and they don't have a private island to show you around, just tell them to jog on. Companies can fail for a variety of reasons, but let's hone in on the main three in the context of Ashes and Star Citizen. Up first, we've got the most common, and most likely the reason behind Intrepid Studios and by extension Ashes of Creation's failure: cashflow. Really simply, you need more money coming in than's going out the door. Often companies don't fail because they've got a crummy product. There are plenty of cases where the overall idea is good, but due to mismanagement of funds, you just hit a point where you can't pay all the bills with your available cash in the bank. Your IP itself might be worth a ton, but you can't pay your staff or your creditors with good ideas. You have to turn those good ideas into hard currency and pay people with that. In an interview back in 2017, Sharif told MassivelyOP.com that he expected a viable build of AOC to cost $30 million to put together. He said that the project would largely be funded by his personal wealth, but that this would be supplemented by the $3.27 million raised through Kickstarter. Now the reality, with significant delays, once again sounding quite familiar, and cost overruns, is that this was a catastrophic underestimation caused by a lack of experience. Reports surfaced in 2019 that the project had taken on investors and loans, which often in private equity and venture cap world come with options to convert into equity. But ultimately, things appear to have come to a head early this year, with Intrepid selling itself to a private equity firm due to the financial pressures. We'll probably have to wait and see if indeed we ever get full details of the takeover terms. Now, we as Star Citizen backers and watchers are often quite harsh with a certain department within CIG. And that is indeed our favourite marketing department, who pretty much catch the blame for nearly everything that sucks in the game. But it's pretty hard to say they don't know their job. If we check out the funding tracker on the CCU game website, we can see that, unlike Intrepid, CIG have not been struggling with cash flowing in the door at a rate that matches it going out. I remember looking at 2020's $78 million of revenue and thinking, well, that's a one-off due to, the virus. And while the 65% year-on-year jump wasn't repeated, funding also didn't fall back and continued to climb. The only step backwards was 2024, where funding fell 1%, but that was still to $116 million. But then we also saw a massive jump to $155 million in 2025. Now I know this is all super nerdy, but hey, you haven't switched off yet. But the irrefutable fact here is that CIG are an awful lot better at raising money than Intrepid ever were. And I think they have 3 things going for them which really have nothing to actually do with the marketing department. Number 1, you have a game. And of course, folks are going to jump on me saying this, so I'm going to get the obligatory "it's a tech demo bro" comment. But whatever you want to call it, since December 11th, 2015, you could hit launch game, head into the persistent universe, and play. And while the pace has been somewhat glacial at points, this gaming experience has steadily filled out. New missions, new mechanics, new planets, new ships, new guns, new tasty beverages. Server populations have got bigger, allowing you to play with more of your friends and experience bigger ship battles or mining operations. The maps got bigger, allowing you to travel between systems and, dare I use the word, explore new locations. Am I saying it's perfect? No, of course I'm not. It's still full of bugs. Even here, we've seen some notable improvements. Just remember when a 30k server error meant that you just lost all of your cargo. Well, that hasn't happened recently. Many people who don't play Star Citizen like to focus on the numbers, the $45,000 packs, the $1,000 level concierge, the $2,000 cap ships. And they, perhaps rightly, think those of us who do play are mad. But in reality, nobody, well okay, maybe a few people, goes out and spends crazy money in one go. People buy a pack and they play the game. Then a sale comes around and do an upgrade, and then they play the game. Then after playing for hours and hours, they get a chunk of cash from somewhere, so they treat themselves to another ship or a paint or an armor set. Outside of StarCit, my most played game is League of Legends. It is free to play. I've probably spent a few $100s on it. The thing is though, I don't really feel it. It's been way over a decade, and it's the occasional treat to myself to get a cool new skin that comes out. It's not me just going and swiping my card and parting with hundreds of bucks. And I feel okay about it because I'm playing and enjoying the game. And when I buy something new, I get to go and use it. Or at the very least in Star Citizen, if I've just caved and bought a concept ship, I get a loaner ship to use there and then. But if there was no game, or as happened with Ashes, I just occasionally got to participate in a playtest, then the servers got switched off again while the devs continued to work, then I wouldn't be getting my card out to remember the CVC number on the back of it for my next swipe. Secondly, a big difference that I would highlight is the experience of CIG's development team and leadership versus Intrepid's. You can say what you like about Chris, unless you say it on Spectrum that is, but the guy has shipped successful games, as have key members of the team such as Richard Tyra. And while CIG have 100% made some management mistakes, I think they are much better equipped to build a game than Steven Sharif ever was. One of the moments that left me feeling the most positive about the Star Citizen project was actually Rich Tyra's 1.0 presentation at SitCon in 2024. And admittedly, it was probably the year-on-year comparison to this keynote that left me feeling a bit underwhelmed about SitCon 25. I really felt that with this presentation there was a much stronger management direction at CIG. The scope that had done the whole creepy thing for as long as I could remember seemed to be getting reined in a bit. And while still not lacking in ambition to build something new, the decisions to cap 1.0 build at 5 systems, not hundreds, to solidify factions and guilds, and to start introducing a core main story element all spoke to a lead manager getting to grips with the situation. Certain things still worry me a bit for sure. In my day job, one of my red flags is when a company splashes a bunch of cash on a shiny HQ building. But I think overall the project seems to be moving steadily in the direction of a proper 1.0 build. And finally, we've got Squadron 42. Now most of us caring about this topic are going to be MMO fans. Either you're a Star Citizen fan, someone who's clicked on this because you were following Ashes, or someone happily dancing on Ash's grave and desperately hoping that SC takes the empty plot next to it. But don't crucify me here, we're a minority. MMORPGs just simply aren't that big of a deal compared to single player games. The market for the latter is just many times bigger. Now there's a lot of risk around Squadron, but in many ways it helps to diversify the risk of Star Citizen. CIG don't have a single horse in the race like AOC did, they have two, and they are decidedly different horses. Certainly, some people, myself included, are looking forward to playing both games, and I really hope that when Squadron releases we might get converts who play the game, love the universe, and want more so they come over to SC. There will be many who've just never heard of Star Citizen, or maybe watch it out the corner of their eye, who don't have any interest in an MMO, but absolutely would have interest in a single player campaign game like Squadron. A lot is made of the amount of money that CIG have made so far, but if Squadron is a solid, successful title on release, then that amount could look like a drop in the ocean. Okay, so I mentioned we'd look at a few reasons why companies fail, then I spent ages talking about cash flow. But really that's because it is the main one. But after years of people saying scam citizen and seeing a lot of accusations being levelled at Ashes now, we do have to address the F word, fraud. Of course, this is a major reason that companies can fail. Management teams cooking the books, or claiming to have IP that they don't to drive up the valuation. Then pocketing the cash from Kickstarter backers and investors, living the good life for as long as it lasts, then taking the first plane to Belize, or a vacation close at home at the local penitentiary. First, I don't think fraud is really the case here. Both Intrepid and CIG had or have real employees working in real offices developing real games. If you haven't, I would definitely recommend watching the documentary about Theranos, a health tech startup that claimed to have a super advanced blood testing machine, when in reality it just had a box and a bunch of lies. The founder Elizabeth Holmes is currently seeing out an 11-year sentence in a Texas prison as a result. And if you're looking for an example of a pure scam closer to home in the gaming world, why not try out The Day Before or Camelot Unchained? But where things can get a lot more grey is when companies slip into, shall we say, scummy practices. The decision by Intrepid Studios to push Ashes to an early access release on Steam in December 25 seems, for want of a better term, a bit on the shady side. At this stage, management would have been fully aware of the perilous state of their balance sheet. Now this could be interpreted as a last gasp push to raise funds and avoid financial ruin. Get what you have out on Steam, get people playing it, attract new customers and hopefully avert disaster. But the accusations of shady dealings here stem from a promise in the Kickstarter project that if the game didn't release, backers would be entitled to a refund. It could well be that Intrepid, knowing that they couldn't continue as a going concern, released on Steam just so that they could tick this box and not have to pay anyone back. Shady? Definitely. Illegal? I'm a stockbroker, not a lawyer. And finally, for my whistle-stop tour of why companies fail, you might just have a crap product. Now, as I said in the beginning, I've lurked and watched AOC's progress over the years, occasionally tuning in to YouTube channels covering the game, and watching some of the gameplay showcases. There was even a point when SC was going through one of its lulls where I hovered over the button to buy a game pack. Thankfully I dodged that bullet, although staring at the RSI Hermes in my hangar, I don't think I put the money to particularly good use. And I don't think that Ashes was shaping up to be a particularly bad product. I just don't think it had much going for it that would have drawn significant amounts of people away from more established tab-targeting MMORPGs. You're competing with the likes of RuneScape, Lord of the Rings Online, and of course WoW. And ultimately this contributed to its cashflow related downfall. One of the things that got me thinking about making this vid was listening to one of my favourite YouTubers, Josh Drive Hayes, on my walk to work Wednesday. He made an excellent vid that I'll link in the description down below, chatting about why so many crowdfunded MMO projects fail. And he zoomed in on the fact that quite often in the traditional MMO space, mechanics don't really matter as much as a small but vocal, dissatisfied minority think they do. Most people who love MMOs love the communities that spring up around them, the guilds they belong to and the relationships they form through long hours of probably quite simplistic grinding. So while some people will gravitate towards the new shiny thing, many will look at a new title, shrug, and carry on playing WoW. I think Star Citizen is ultimately in a better position than Ashes ever was from a product perspective. Following the project for the last 5 years, building a large organisation around it and going to events like Bar Citizens and SitCons, I have had the chance to speak to loads of other backers. And one thing I can say is that we are not cut from the same cloth. Some folks are fans of Chris Roberts' earlier creations like Wing Commander and Freelancer, Some came over from other space sims like Elite Dangerous, others are MMO or survival game fans like me who had an unhealthy dose of Star Wars growing up. And as I mentioned earlier, there is a real game here, which allows for one of the most important aspects that Josh highlighted about drawing people to certain MMOs. It allows communities to build. We run a community and org on our Discord with more than 7,000 members and loads of regular events that draw in hundreds if not thousands of people on any given week. But, particularly with the length of time that SC has taken to develop and the rapid advancement of technology, this is an area that CIG should know they're not immune. Player investment in SC, by which I mean your commitment to it, not your money, you haven't invested money in SC, you spent money on it, is never going to be solidified until it hits 1.0. And we can start banking proper progression in the game and getting that much more invested. Until that point, the temptation of a competitor is always going to be there if another game comes along which offers to do the same thing better. We see this with things like the recent updates to games like No Man's Sky. So ending on this note, I don't think Star Citizen is in the same position as Ashes and destined for any imminent failure. But part of me does hope that to some extent the big cheeses at CIG are watching what has happened and take this as a reminder that their success isn't guaranteed. Obviously I'm biased, I unapologetically love this game. And while we are even now clearly going through one of the cyclical dips in the Star Citizen interest meter, due to hints at an upcoming wipe and delays to key features like crafting, I think the progress made in the last couple of years has been really strong. They just need to keep doing what they're doing and not develop that feeling of invincibility that so often is the last red flag before a company bites the dust. I hope you enjoyed this vid. It was really fun for me to make and a rare chance to dip into some of my real life skills as an investor while still focusing on my passion. If you think I've earned it, then I would massively appreciate it if you liked, subscribed and tickled that notification bell. But with all that said, thanks for watching and I look forward to seeing you next time.